Welcome to Beerstories from Beerstory Brewhouse. This video is about how to brew sour beers, and especially Berliner Weisse, using the Philly sour yeast. I'm going to talk about other sour beers as well, but this is about the yeast here and how to brew Berliner Weisse, and I'll give you a great recipe for that later on in the video. I get a lot of questions about how to get started with brewing sour beers. So I thought I will make this video because the yeast Philly sour is actually what I think makes it, it's just the easiest way to get started with sour beers. And that's, I think that's a fact because it's easy to use. You don't need to regulate the sourness because the yeast does it for you. It's hop tolerant, so you can make a sour IPA if you want that. The funny thing about this yeast is that it produces lactic acid while fermenting the beer. Normally, when making a Berliner Weisse, you kettle sour it. And that means that you, after you made your wort, you cool it down, you boil it, cool it down, then you add lactobacillus, which is a bacteria that produces lactic acid, and then let it rest for 12 to 48 hours, so it will make the wort sour. This is a process that's very hard to control. You have to be very aware. You have to measure with pH meter and stuff like that. You have to maybe taste it. And then when you're done, you need to heat it up again to kill the bacteria and then proceed with your brewing. So the Philly sour saves you a lot of time and a lot of process that's, it's just a lot of work to do. The Philly sour, you can just brew a normal beer, add the Philly sour, and it will turn into a sour beer. So that's very, very, very easy. Other ways to do sour beers is wild fermentation, yeast and bacteria from fruit, from barrels, from nuts, from malt even, yeah. You can also add just lactic acid, just by, just the fluid stuff you can buy. Or just add fruit. Fruit have a natural sourness, or you can add bread. Bread is not really for sour beers, but it gets really dry and a little bit citrusy and a little bit acidic. But I wouldn't consider bread beer a sour beer. It's just wild fermented. But it is a bit sour, to be fair. But the easiest way is just to use the Philly sour yeast, really. And an easy way to get started is brewing a Berliner Weisse. You take 40 to 50% wheat, 50 to 60% Pilsner malt. You make a beer with around 3 to 5% alcohol. Berliner Weisse is a light beer. And then you only need to add bitter hops just to get very, very small amount of bitterness, 3 to 8 IBUs, very, very little. And that's it. A good tip is to use rice hulls so you are avoiding a stock mash. But that's actually it. I have a recipe down here where you can see, and that's a little bit more complex recipe, not complex, but I added carapils and I added oats just to give it a little bit more body and a little bit sweetness to balance the sourness actually. And then I added raspberries. So raspberries is not a traditional thing to do actually. The traditional German way to drink a Weiss beer is to add fruit syrup or whole fruits, but in the glass you are serving it with, so not in the fermentation. But I think that's just a modern way of thinking, to add the fruit in the fermentation. So when I add fruit, I buy frozen fruit. It's good if you use fresh fruit. It's good to freeze it because that would burst all the cells in the fruit and make the sugar and all the flavor come out more easily. But also heat it up to about 85 degrees Celsius or 180 degrees Fahrenheit, just to kill all microorganisms. And then this puree, add it directly into your fermentation tank, and then put the wort on top of that. That will cool it down and mix it. Boom. Add the filled sour yeast and you're done. Perfect fruited Berliner Weisse. Very, very easy. And if you want to play around with some other stuff, you can add cherry, you can add blueberries, peach, apricot. There's a lot of plums even. There's a lot of things you can do here. You can even add lactose to make it a milkshake, sour IP, sour something, smoothie, sour smoothie. Yeah, but I wouldn't do. I would do my recipe first, and then maybe think about adding a bit of vanilla or licorice. That's really, really lovely in this type of beer. Yeah, and then you have it. If you don't want it as sour as the Philly sour does it, and it's not going to be sour at all. Yeah, so of course it's going to be sour, but it's not acidic. It's not vinegar in any way. It's very balanced. But if you want to do something else and just let the fruit sour it just a little bit, you can use a yeast for German wheat beer, so you get more of those banana esters to compensate to balance out the other fruits and the sourness, and yeah. And that's why I call Berliner Weisse a playground for brewers, a creative playground, because it's just this open wide campus where you can just play around and you can do so many different things with this basic recipe that I have down here. And if you really want a basic classic Berliner Weisse, just don't add the raspberries. Very, very simple. Down in the description there's a recipe. There's also my converter tool for CO2, my CO2 table, where you can see, because you have to have a bit higher carbonation in a wheat beer like this, just to make it even more fresh. Yeah, so I guess that was it. If you have any questions, then write to me. Other than that, just have a happy brewing.